No, not again, Katrina grumbled as she looked at the clock. 3 a.m. Of course, these stupid good-for-nothing animals, she muttered, peeling herself out of the bed. Katrina, 40, and her husband are farmers in Acacia Hills, Northern Territory, Australia. And with him away, Katrina would need to deal with whatever calamity was outside. As she headed out into the dark night to collect her ATV, the cries of the distressed animal hung in the night sky. "It's the same animal calls," she murmured. She'd heard this call many times before. Ever since moving to this farm 9 years ago, Katrina and the Tucker family had heard these strange animal calls at irregular intervals. They'd never been able to identify the source. Well, tonight is the night, she thought, as she travelled along the dark path towards the sounds. When suddenly the lights of the ATV fell on what appeared to be an animal haunched down, crushing her fence. Katrina screeched to a halt. "What is this?" she exclaimed. "Is that bear?" she wondered in astonishment. Haunched down, with his back facing her, the creature had long red or brown, shaggy, matted, dull hair. Now frozen with fear, the hairs raised all over her body. In terror, she gazed upon the strange animal. Meanwhile, a chloride sulfur odor permeated the air around her. She felt herself beginning to gag, when without warning he got up. Immediately, Katrina let out a blood-curdling scream and quickly spun the ATV around to race home. On turning the vehicle, she realized he was now less than 3 meters away from her. Standing at 7 foot, his arms were down to his knees. He had no neck, with strange shaped shoulders. As she took off, so did he, moving along the fence line with her, as though he was skating through the air. Katrina raced back to the high-set farmhouse. Leaving the ATV at the bottom of the stairs, she quickly made her way inside, turning off all the lights, and rang her husband. "It's probably someone playing a trick on you with a monkey suit," he told her. "Load the gun, fire off a shot from the veranda. That ought to scare them off." Putting down the phone, she ran to the bedroom, loaded her gun. "I'm not going out there," she snickered as she sat on her bed and waited for the sun to rise. At daylight, she cautiously left her home and went back to the fence. Her pawpaw trees were broken, the fence crushed, and large humanoid footprints were all over. When asked after, did she think it was still a bear, she replied, "No. I most related to Chewbacca from Star Wars." Hello, Mrs. Oya and Pepper. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Nat and I'm coming to you from the beautiful shores of North Queensland, Australia, home of the Great Barrier Reef and the Quincan. Wait, that's not an Australian accent, you say, and you would be correct. I was born and raised in South Africa and immigrated to Australia about 15 years ago. If you enjoy this video, please click on the like and subscribe button. And if you would like a free gift with this one's mug on it, down in the description box below is a link to our newsletter featuring our now famous Pepper and our noisy Harley. With all that out of the way, let's get on with the video. If you're walking up a mountain and you start to feel a bit sleepy, that's his presence. He'll try to put you to sleep. But if you sit down and have a bit of a snooze, he'll get you. Percy Mbula, 1979, fully initiated Aboriginal elder. The wild beasts of the desert shall also meet with the wild beasts of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl also shall rest there, and find for herself a place of rest. Yowie, yes, Yowie, Australia's very own Bigfoot, a large sulphur-smelling ape-like man who terrorizes Australians of all ilk, with documented reported cases going back as far as the 1700s. Today I'll share the story of a state senator who, even after being elected, never changed his statement as to witnessing a Yowie, and we'll watch that interview where he actually says what happens in that event. But first, let's examine the vast land that old Yowie decided to inhabit. The sixth largest country on Earth, Australia is the oldest, flattest, and driest continent inhabited. Its vast size provides a variety of landscapes, from the large outback desert in the middle to tropical rainforests and vast mountain ranges. It has a population of about 26 million, and yes, Pepper's gone. She's driving me crazy. But the majority being Christian, about 43.9% identify as such. Prior to colonial settlement, it comprised of two main groups, Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders. Aboriginal culture is one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, and before British settlement, there were about 300,000 to a million. They spoke over 250 different languages, and they lived in semi-permanent dwellings. Most of their food source was by fishing, and they practiced fire stick farming, which is a practice of burning vegetations in hopes of yielding a better crop next season. They used to do that in South Africa as well. They passed down history orally, doing what is known as a walkabout, walking through the country with an elder, sharing songs, stories, dance. We're a very spiritual group of people, and there is, however, conflict about what their actual origin beliefs are. So I try to piece it together as best I can. If I got it a little bit wrong, I'm really sorry, but this is the best I could make of it. The Earth was a magical place inhabited by mystical creatures with supernatural powers, godlike but not gods. So they were not worshipped, and they had no control over the material world. The Sun Mother, however, looked upon the Earth, and she was barren and unable to have children, desperately wanted children of her own, so she cried to this Father of all spirits and urged him to make children. He agreed and made human spirits, and the human spirits then inhabited the Earth in the form of human beings. They believe in what is known as the dreaming, a belief that time has no beginning and no foreseeable end. It's a belief that the natural environment is shaped and humanized by mythical beings, and the term dreaming was initially documented in an ethnographic report by Francis Gillen, a station master, magistrate, and amateur ethnographer in 1896. He must have been very busy, or he didn't like his wife, let's be honest. Ethnography is a qualitative method for collecting data, often used in social and behavioral sciences. They practice totemism, a belief in which humans have a kinship with mystical spirits. Totem comes from the word totmon, meaning brother, sister, kin. Each group practiced spirituality tied to the local area that they were in. For instance, the Gunganji people in North Queensland, where I live, believe that the coastland from Cairns to the Great Barrier Reef was actually a land, and it was filled with forests when a great flood came, and now that land is forever submerged. They also have a belief in what is known as a rainbow serpent. Again, each place has a different name for him, but it is in essence the same creature, and it's a gigantic serpent that dwells in the watering holes and waterways of Australia. And it's said that he comes from beyond the Milky Way and he loves to move through the rain as he sings while shaping the landscapes and swallowing and drowning any human who may unfortunately stumble across his path. He has healing powers and he has the ability to make it rain. However, if he's angered, he can infect his victims with sores, weaknesses, illness, and even death. Aboriginals also believe that humans, people, and places are all connected, and when you die, your bones need to be buried in the place that you were born because your spirit's got to go back into the earth because the earth suffers after your death. Once a person has passed away and buried, they have what is known as a sorry business, and this is a period of mourning, usually days, but it could be weeks and months depending on your stature in the community. And this is where the entire community participates in mourning. And then the family usually stay in the same room for the entire period. I just know my bloodline would be over because there would have only ever been 2 funerals, one for when the first person died, and then the second would be a mass funeral for when we all sat in the same room for over a period of time. So it would not have lasted. Anyway, moving on. Depicting a person or saying their name after death is a big no-no according to ancient law, and it'll disturb their spirit. A smoking ceremony is held, and this aids release the deceased spirit back into the land of the dead or the sky world, entering back into the dream time. Death is seen as part of the cycle of life in which one emerges from the dream time through birth and then eventually returns only to emerge again. So what was the strange creature that Katrina Tucker saw that night? I got much of this information from the Yowie file and the Yowie, authored by Tony Healy and Paul Cropper, leading cryptozoologists and Yowie experts and hunters in Australia. I've linked their channel down in the description box below. I've also put a link to their website where you can actually go and see they've done a wonderful job of archiving every single news report, every single person's report, and then they get Australians to ring in and actually tell of each and every of their sightings that they've witnessed when it comes to the Yowie. So if you like this content and if you're interested in the Australian book Bigfoot, give them a bit of love and go and check out their channel and support them. Most Aboriginal tribes have a strong belief in the existence of Yowie, although they have different names, again, because they all spoke different languages. So they would call it a Doolagal, a Jimbra, a Putikan, to name a few. Generally, the term means hairy man. However, he is a giant and should not be confused with the other hairy man, a smaller creature, and he's known as the little hairy man or brown jacks or wood archies. There's a controversy as to where the term Yowie came from, many believing it was an English term used to describe the elusive creature. Others believe it is the word related to Yuhu, which is the name for devil, an ape-like deity who's very slender, long, straight white hair, extraordinary long arms and talons for hands, and his feet are turned backwards to trick his opponents who try and track him. This devil only comes out at night and he carries women and children away, sometimes never to be found again. He sounds a lot like Pishtaku, and if you're interested in that, that's my first video called the Pelacaris, which is the face peelers in Peru. Aboriginals describe Yowie as a big black fella that walks around at night, much like the Himalayan Yeti again. His feet are backwards. His objective is to destroy good black fellas and their children. They are man-eaters, and children are said to be their favorite delicacy. Their footprints are said to be 3 times larger than a grown adult, And many of the pictures that you see in this video are actually those of the footprints and the images of the farm where this situation happened with Katrina. There is a belief if there's 3 knocks on the door, expect a visit from the giant who has a particular fondness for violating women. When a woman ventures alone in the bush at night, he will swoop in and take her away, returning her after a very long period of time and sometimes never. And those who were returned spoke of wicked assaults that they had to endure. With the arrival of the settlers, Yowie did not shy away from these humans either, and this is when the colonialists started seeing the same sightings, and we got the actual documentation from the 1700s. Again, down in the description box below, if you are interested in looking through those old reports, it's really interesting. On October 22nd, 1977, William O'Chee, a student at the TSS Southport School in Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia, attended a school camp at the Kanjawal campgrounds in the Springbrook National Park. It was a group of about 30 students and teachers. After lunch this day, a group of children went and had a walk, and as they looked over the dam, they happened to see a Yowie on the escarpment between the trees. The strange event took place long enough for the children to pass around binoculars that each child, there was about 20 in the group, managed to witness this mammoth beast. That night, the entire group heard him making frightening noises as he tore up the foliage around their rooms while howling, waking everyone up. The following morning, despite the caretaker's warnings, teacher Kevin Brooks grabbed William and a couple of other kids, and they decided they were going to go and scan the area and investigate what those crazy noises were the night before. We'll watch a video where Bill will actually go in and explain what happens. But as this was happening and Bill explains what's happening, the caretaker and the children are still at their rooms, and can actually see the search party on the one side and Yowie a few meters away from them, watching them, but they can't let them know because of the distance. So it was a terrifying experience. After this happened, they then left the campground. The students were then instructed not to say a word to anyone, and Bill would just not accept it. So he wrote an article in the school newspaper, which was heavily redacted. Outraged by this, a week later, Bill wrote a story and managed to get it published in the Gold Coast Bulletin, the biggest newspaper in that area, turning this into the most famous Yowie sighting in Australia. When Bill finished high school, he went on to graduate from Oxford University, and he gave up a lucrative banking career to become a state senator for Queensland, where he served from 1990 to 1999. While in Senate, Bill was asked about his experience. Let's watch.
True that some sightings appear to be the work of hoaxers and charlatans, here in the nation's parliament is a Yowie witness whose motives cannot be questioned. Bill O'Chee is a senator in the Australian Parliament. At the age of 13, he was at a school camp in Queensland. From his window of his cabin, Bill was one of the first to see a huge creature.
Basically, we saw a Yowie. We didn't know what they were at the time. We saw a sort of hairy, ape-like thing that probably would have stood about 8 feet tall. It moved in a sort of slightly crab-like fashion, and we observed it for probably about half an hour. We went up afterwards, we saw where it had been lying down in the grass. The impression of the animal was very clear in the grass. We followed it up to the tree line where it had disappeared. I didn't go in, but it was obvious that there was a trail of destruction where it had gone, broken branches and so on. But they lost the track in there. The teachers and boys lost the track. I was one of 2 or 3 boys sitting at the edge of the tree line, looking back down the hill, and it apparently reappeared behind us, but we couldn't see it. That night, there was a lot of noise very late in the night, and when we woke up the next day, we found huge shrubs had been ripped out by the roots, thrown around the surrounding paddock, and that there were very large footprints in the soil. Now, I'm a fairly strong fellow, and there's no way even today I could have ripped plants that size out by my bare hands. So whatever it is immensely powerful.
But the sightings that he and his classmates experienced are still not enough evidence for some.
No, it wasn't mass hysteria because we didn't know what these things were. There was physical evidence, and importantly, there were masters there as well. When we came back, we were told that we weren't allowed to talk about it. The masters didn't want the word getting out, but they'd seen the evidence as we had.
There you have it, my friends. Tell me down in the comments, what do you think? Are people crazy? Are they making these stories up? Are there 7-foot apes running around hidden in Australian bush we don't know about? Or is it some strange satire from some other dimension? You decide. Stick around for the next few minutes if you're wondering if this is in the Bible, and if not, thank you so much for watching. Please click the like and subscribe button, and don't forget the free gift down in the description box below is a link to our newsletter. Take care. Yowie, Bigfoot. Can these stories be true? I don't know for sure. I haven't seen one, so I can't say. I have listened to hours of people telling their stories, many giving their names and even where they live, which is a strange thing for Australia, because unlike in the United States, they seem to be much more open with where they are and who their names are and faces being out there. Australia is not like that. It's much more sheltered, but these people will give their names and where they live, and they'll give their testimonies. So it is an interesting idea that they do that. I used the scripture to start off this video in Isaiah because it had the satire in it. And I went and I read through the chapter. I'm not here to teach you. I'm just here to tell you what it says. And I do encourage you to go read it for yourself. But it was very interesting because the heading in my King James Bible calls it the day of the Lord. So it's the last day. It's the final day. And it's basically starts off like this. And it says in verse 1, "Come near, you nations, to hear, and hearken, you people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all the things that come forth of it." So basically God's like saying, listen up everybody, I've got something to say, right? Then he goes on in verse 2, "For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them, he hath delivered them to the slaughter." So we can see God is very unhappy and with everyone, and as he describes this, right? And then he goes on to describe the war in heaven that's coming. And then he says in verse 8, "For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion." Now, I'm not sure about how the rest of you feel, but for me, something's not right. I'm not a date giver. I don't know when it's going to end, but it's weird. It's weird. It's off. Strange things are happening, and there is a shift in the world. And I know a lot of other people feel that way. And if you do, let me know down in the comments. So if this is referring to the last day, and we in the last days, it would be obvious that these creatures would start coming out and the veil would be lifted off, right? The apocalypse, that's the unveiling, the revealing, and we would start seeing these things. So it is like it could be possible. I don't know for sure. I've never seen one, so I can't say. But I'm not prepared to call these people liars at all. Like I believe them until someone else proves that they're liars. Until then, we've got to believe people with what they say. That's respecting others, and to go to the trouble to write to someone, to sit and record the video and know it's going to go out to the world, that takes guts. And many, many people have done that. So that is something to consider. But my friend, remember, read the Bible. It is fascinating. I'm going to get out of here and go and feed Mr. Harley and Pepper. God bless you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.